All right, so get ready because we are diving deep into the world of Naruto. You know, you guys sent us a podcast episode, and they rank some of the most iconic characters based on power, personality, that kind of thing. But we're not just gonna like rehash their opinions. We're really trying to uncover those like hidden gems, those insightful nuggets that maybe even like hardcore fans might have missed.
Yeah, it's so interesting how they try to use this numerical system to evaluate these complex characters.
Yeah.
It's like trying to capture lightning in a bottle, right? I mean, how do you quantify power and personality in a universe as rich as Naruto?
Right, exactly. It's so much more than who can like throw the biggest Rasengan or Chidori, right?
Right.
We're talking motivations, relationships, how they evolve.
Right.
Speaking of evolution, let's actually start with the characters who arguably undergo the most dramatic transformations.
Okay.
Naruto, Sasuke, Sakura, the main trio.
Yes.
So the Source podcast, they kick things off by giving Naruto a perfect 10 for power.
Yeah, makes sense.
Which, let's be honest, pretty hard to argue with.
Right.
By the end of the series, his mastery of the Nine-Tails chakra sage mode, I mean, he's a force of nature.
He's a beast.
But here's where it gets interesting. They give him a 9-hen for personality. What's the reasoning there?
I think they acknowledge his, boisterous nature, his tendency to act impulsively.
Especially in the beginning.
Especially in the beginning.
Right.
But they also, acknowledge his incredible growth, his unwavering determination, and, his ability to inspire those around him.
So they grapple with that.
Yeah.
He's this powerhouse ninja.
Yeah.
But also still a bit rough around the edges.
Yeah, a little rough around the edges still.
Which makes him relatable.
For sure.
So, okay. On to Sasuke, the brooding prodigy.
Oh, yeah.
They give him a 9.5 for power.
Makes sense.
His Sharingan. And later the Rinnegan. That'll definitely put him in a league of his own.
For sure.
But his personality score isn't that far behind.
Okay.
A 9. And, we have to remember, he starts off consumed by vengeance.
Yeah.
Driven to darkness after the tragic loss of his clan.
Right.
But the Source podcast seems to appreciate his, eventual return to the light,
Okay.
reconciliation with Naruto, and ultimately commitment to protecting the village he once sought to destroy.
It's a classic redemption arc.
It is. It's a classic redemption arc that resonates with so many fans.
Yeah.
Okay, now, Sakura often gets a lot of flack from fans,
Right.
but the Source podcast actually gives her some, I think, decent scores.
Okay.
8.5 for power.
Okay.
7 for personality.
All right.
Do you think that's fair?
I mean, it's interesting because they highlight her incredible strength, her medical ninjutsu skills, and, her crucial role in several battles.
Right.
But they also point out her moments of, emotional turbulence.
Especially early on.
Especially early on, yeah.
Right.
And I think they grapple with her initial dependence on her teammates, but acknowledge her evolution into a powerful and independent kunoichi.
Right, so they acknowledge her growth, but still hold her, initial shortcomings against her.
A little bit, yeah.
To some extent.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. Now let's move on to the mentors who shaped these 3 ninjas.
Okay, let's do it.
The legendary Sannin.
The legendary Sannin.
Jiraiya, Tsunade, and Orochimaru.
Yes.
All right, so the Source podcast seems to have a particular fondness for Jiraiya, giving him a 9 for power and a perfect 10 for personality. His mastery of Sage Mode, his giant toad summons.
Pervinus.
Yeah, his perviness. All get a shout out.
Of it.
Okay, let's unpack that 10 for personality. Is it just because he's the comic relief? Or is there more to it?
I think it's definitely more than just comic relief. They praise his humor, but also emphasize his wisdom, the crucial role he plays as a mentor and a father figure to Naruto.
Right.
Remember, he guides Naruto not just in honing his ninja skills, but also in navigating the emotional turmoil of his childhood and embracing his destiny. They seem to view him as a complex character who provides, both comedic relief and profound life lessons.
I like that. Okay, and now for Tsunade.
The 5th Hokage.
The 5th Hokage.
Yeah.
She gets an 8.5 for power.
Okay.
Which is understandable given her monstrous strength and unmatched medical ninjutsu.
Sure.
However, her personality score is a bit lower at 8. What are your thoughts?
I think, they acknowledge her tough exterior, as a consequence of her tragic past and how it can sometimes come across as, harsh or unfeeling.
Yeah.
But they also highlight her deep compassion and her unwavering dedication to protecting her village and those she cares about.
Right.
It's like they recognize the vulnerability beneath her tough exterior. But it's not quite enough to bump her personality score any higher.
Interesting. Okay. And finally, we have the wild card of the group.
Oh, yeah.
Orochimaru. There's no denying his power. He gets a 9 for that. But his personality score is a dismal 7.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to score high in personality when you're obsessed with immortality and conducting unethical experiments on unsuspecting victims.
Right. Exactly.
He's a fascinating antagonist, though, representing the dangers of unchecked ambition, the allure of forbidden knowledge.
Yeah.
But, the Source podcast seems to focus primarily on his creepiness and morally questionable actions when evaluating his personality.
So it's like they're saying, sure, you're powerful and complex, but you're also super creepy, so points off for that.
Exactly.
All right, so that covers the heroes and their mentors.
Right.
But what about the forces that push them to their limits?
Oh, yeah.
The antagonists who shape the very landscape of the Naruto world. Let's dive into the next category. The villains.
Okay, so speaking of those who blur the lines between good and evil, let's talk about Madara, Obito, and Pain.
Okay.
These characters, they're not just powerful. I mean, they're complex figures whose actions send ripples through the entire Naruto world. In the Source podcast, they weren't shy about giving Madara a perfect 10 for power.
I mean, he practically rewrote the rules of the ninja world with his mastery of the Sharingan and Rinnegan, his strategies. Come on.
It's crazy.
But what's really interesting is that they also give him a 9 for personality.
Yeah.
Calling him, quote, too cool to hate.
Yeah, and I think it's fascinating how they acknowledge his charisma, his intelligence, even while condemning his ambition to, control the world through the infinite Tsukuyomi.
Right.
He's a classic example of a villain who genuinely believes that he's doing what's best for humanity, even if it means sacrificing individual freedom and choice.
It makes you question, whether the ends justify the means.
Absolutely.
And then there's Obito, the masked man, shrouded in mystery.
Oh, yeah, Obito.
He gets a 9.5 for power,
Yeah.
wielding the Rinnegan, manipulating the Akatsuki from the shadows. But his personality score is a 9, with the podcast specifically highlighting his tragic past and eventual redemption arc.
Right. And his story is such a powerful exploration of how trauma and manipulation can just warp even the most well-intentioned heart.
Right.
Witnessing the death of Rin, shattered his faith in the world.
Totally.
And led him down this path of darkness.
Right.
But ultimately, that love for his friends, for his village, it resurfaces.
It never went away.
Yeah.
Right.
Leading him to sacrifice himself to protect the future he once sought to destroy.
It's so powerful. And finally, we have Pain.
Or Nagako.
Or Nagato, the leader of the Akatsuki.
Yes.
Whose philosophy challenges the very concept of peace.
Right.
He receives a 9 for power. His mastery of the Six Paths technique, his control over the Rinnegan, all central to his reign of terror. But what stands out is his personality score, an 8.5. The podcast really emphasizes his iconic speech about the cyclical nature of pain and how understanding suffering is the only path to true peace.
It's a chilling philosophy.
It is.
But one that's rooted in his own profound experiences of loss and war.
Totally.
It forces us to confront the complexities of conflict and the idea that sometimes even those who commit these terrible acts have understandable motivations.
Do you think the Source podcast was trying to elicit empathy for these villains?
Oh, for sure. I mean, I think they're inviting us to consider the human element behind the villainy.
Yeah.
To understand the experiences that shaped these characters and led them down their respective paths.
Yeah.
It makes for a much richer narrative experience when you can grapple with those complexities of even the antagonists.
It's so much more engaging than just having, one-dimensional bad guys who are evil for evil's sake.
Exactly.
All right, so we've talked about the main heroes, their mentors, and the villains who push them to their limits.
Right.
But no deep dive into Naruto would be complete without acknowledging, the fan favorites. Those characters who capture our hearts with their unique quirks and appeal.
Right.
And speaking of appeal, let's start with Kakashi Hatake, the copy ninja himself.
Yes. Kakashi. The Source podcast, they clearly have a soft spot for Kakashi, giving him a solid 9 for power and a perfect 10 for personality. They highlight his mastery of the Sharingan, his, vast jutsu arsenal, his signature move, the Chidori. But, it's his personality that really shines through. They describe him as just too cool, emphasizing his mysterious aura, laid-back demeanor, dry wit.
I'm I'm curious, why do you think Kakashi resonates so strongly with fans? Like, what makes him so cool? Is it his combat prowess, his enigmatic personality, or maybe his role as a mentor?
I think it's probably a combination of all those factors. I mean, his fighting style is visually impressive, copying countless jujutsus with his Sharingan, and like his mastery of the Chidori adds this like element of danger and excitement. But I think his coolness also comes from his like enigmatic personality. He's always calm and collected, even in the face of danger. And his mask and like perpetually relaxed posture creates a sense of like mystery and intrigue.
Right, and let's not forget his role as a mentor. Like, he's not just teaching his students how to fight. He's imparting valuable life lessons about teamwork, the importance of following the rules, and the consequences of straying from the path.
He embodies that balance between power and wisdom, making him a compelling character for like casual viewers and hardcore fans alike.
Right. Okay, next up is Itachi Uchiha, Sasuke's older brother, a figure shrouded in mystery and tragedy. He gets a 9.5 for power, which makes sense given his prowess with the Mangekyo Sharingan, his reputation as a prodigy, but it's his personality score that really stands out. A perfect 10. The podcast even calls him the Gigu, which I think a lot of fans would agree with.
I mean, Itachi's story is arguably one of the most heartbreaking complex in the entire series. He's forced to make this impossible choice, slaughter his own clan to prevent a coup that would like plunge the ninja world into chaos, or watch as his family ignites this devastating war. And he chooses the former, accepting the mantle of villain to protect his village and his like beloved younger brother Sasuke.
And he carries that burden with him until his dying breath. I mean, it's no wonder fans find him so compelling. He operates in this moral gray area, committing terrible acts for ultimately noble reasons. It makes you question the very nature of good and evil, sacrifice, and the bonds of family.
Exactly. He challenges our like easy categorization of heroes and villains. He forces us to confront the complexities of morality and like the agonizing choices one sometimes has to make for the greater good.
And finally, we have Shikamaru Nara, the master strategist with a knack for outsmarting his opponents. He may not possess like overwhelming physical strength, but his intellect and tactical brilliance make him an undeniable force to be reckoned with. The podcast awards him an 8 for power and a 9 for personality, praising his laid-back genius vibe.
He's the embodiment of work smarter, not harder. His shadow possession jutsu, while not flashy, is like incredibly versatile and effective, and his ability to analyze situations, predict his opponent's moves, makes him such a formidable opponent. But I think it's his personality that truly endears him to fans.
Right. He's relatable, he's incredibly intelligent, but also lazy and constantly complains about things being troublesome. It's like he's a voice for all of us who just want to take a nap instead of dealing with life's complexities.
Exactly. He's like this refreshing counterpoint to the, gung-ho, always training archetype. He reminds us that sometimes it's okay to take a step back, think things through, and find the most efficient path to success.
He makes strategy and intellect look cool. So after analyzing the Source podcast's take on these individual characters, I'm curious about how they approach the relationships that shape these personalities and drive the narrative forward. I mean, they spend a lot of time evaluating individual power and personality, but what about the dynamics between characters?
Absolutely. It's not just about individual strength or personality. It's about how these elements like interact and clash, creating a complex web of, alliances, rivalries, and emotional connections that keep us hooked.
Right. Let's start with one of the most iconic trios in anime history, Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura. What insights did the Source podcast offer about their dynamic?
I mean, they highlight the classic, underdog striving for recognition, Naruto, contrasting him with the brooding prodigy haunted by tragedy, Sasuke. And caught in the middle is Sakura, initially drawn to Sasuke's allure, but eventually recognizing, Naruto's unwavering loyalty and inner strength.
It's a roller coaster. Their loyalties are tested, their friendships strained, and at times it seems like their bond might just shatter completely. But they also push each other to grow, challenge each other's perspectives, and ultimately, learn to rely on each other's strengths.
Yeah, the Source podcast points out that each member brings something unique to the table. Naruto's infectious optimism and determination inspires those around him. Sasuke's talent and ambition, while often misguided, set a high bar for their training and growth. And Sakura, initially underestimated, blossoms into a powerful kunoichi and a crucial source of support and healing for her teammates.
They complete each other, forming a unit that's greater than the sum of its parts. Now, beyond the main trio, Naruto is full of compelling mentor-student relationships. What are your thoughts on how the Source podcast addressed these dynamics?
I mean, they touch on the profound impact these relationships have, not just on skill development, but on shaping, like values, worldview, and ultimately destiny. Take Jiraiya's influence on Naruto, for example. He imparts valuable combat skills, of course, but he also guides Naruto through his emotional turmoil, teaching him to harness his inner strength and embrace his role as a Jinchuriki.
It's like a passing of the torch, not just of power, but of wisdom and a sense of purpose. And what about Kakashi's guidance of Team 7? The Source podcast praises his mentorship style, but what makes him so effective?
I think he strikes that perfect balance between stern discipline and genuine care. He pushes his students to their limits, but he also recognizes their individual needs and encourages them to support each other. He embodies that ideal ninja leader capable of both inspiring loyalty and demanding excellence.
He's the cool teacher everyone wishes they had. Now, some of these mentor-student relationships even transcend the boundaries of, good and evil. Itachi, despite being labeled a rogue ninja, subtly guides Sasuke toward a path of redemption. And Obito, consumed by darkness for years, ultimately recognizes Naruto as a kindred spirit and sacrifices himself to protect the future.
These complex dynamics, they challenge our preconceived notions of right and wrong, reminding us that people are rarely purely good or evil. It's these shades of gray that make the Naruto world so compelling.
It's like the series is saying that even those who've committed terrible acts can find redemption, and even the most hardened hearts can be touched by compassion and understanding. So we've explored heroes, villains, fan favorites, and the relationships that bind them. But what about the bigger picture? What overarching themes or messages did the Source podcast extract from this exploration of the Naruto universe?
I mean, one recurring theme is the concept of legacy. The characters are constantly grappling with the weight of the past, both their personal histories and the history of the ninja world. They're influenced by the actions of those who came before them, and their choices have repercussions for generations to come.
This endless cycle of conflict and resolution, each generation adding their own chapter to the story for better or worse.
Exactly. And within that cycle, we see the enduring themes of hope and despair, love and loss, power and responsibility. The characters face unimaginable challenges, experience profound grief, and make difficult choices that shape their destinies.
It's a world where actions have consequences, but it's also a world where redemption is always possible. And even the smallest act of kindness can have a ripple effect. So after this deep dive into the source material, what are your final thoughts? What insights or questions linger in your mind?
For me, it's the idea that even in a world filled with fantastical jujutsu and epic battles, it's the human element that truly resonates. These characters, despite their extraordinary abilities, grapple with relatable emotions. Love, loss, betrayal, desire for recognition, the struggle to find their place in the world.
And that's what makes the Naruto universe so enduring, right? It's a reminder that even in the face of adversity, there's always hope, there's always the possibility of redemption, and there's always the power of human connection to overcome even the darkest of challenges.
Well said. And on that note, I think it's time to turn the conversation over to you, our listener. What resonated with you most during this exploration of the Naruto world? Was it a particular character's journey, a specific relationship dynamic, or perhaps one of the overarching themes we discussed?
We encourage you to delve deeper into those elements that sparked your curiosity. Explore the complexities of your favorite characters, analyze the nuances of their relationships, and ponder the messages that resonate with you on a personal level.
And remember, the Naruto universe is vast and multifaceted. There are always new layers to uncover, new connections to make, and new insights to gain. So keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep discovering the hidden gems that await within this extraordinary world.
Until next time, stay curious, keep diving deep, and never underestimate the power of your own story.